Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for the third episode of Devs, and look guys, I know I am 2 weeks behind, but look, things have been crazy lately. I think we can all agree things have been crazy. I have not been as focused on some things as I would have wanted to, but I finally got around, and I'm gonna review the next two episodes before the next one comes out. As you guys know, if you didn't see my review for the first two episodes, I was a fan, definitely. I wasn't head over heels in love with it yet, but I was really liking what they were setting up. I thought it was a very promising premiere. Episode 2 especially, I thought built things quite well, especially what they were doing with the character of Lily. And I have to say, if this episode is any indication of what the show is going to be moving forward, I am all for it, because this for me was the best episode so far. I fucking love this episode. There was a lot going on here that I really did love. It was relatively simple. This was very much a setup episode, but it's the perfect kind of setup episodes that really gets things moving, that does a really good job of telling you where these characters are going to go, sort of igniting the war between these two groups, and I'm just really loving what we're getting here. So we're just going to get right into it, starting off, of course, with everything going on with Lily, who I have to say, look, I know a lot of people were trashing on this character in the first two episodes, but I don't know how you watch this episode and not be absolutely in love with what they are doing with Lily as a character, because the show did such an excellent job of kind of misleading you here. Because to be honest, for a while, the show had me convinced when she was going into the office, and you could tell that she was very overly stressed and almost distracted. She's going back to work. It seemed like a genuine reaction. There's a lot that Lily has been through since the last time she's returned to work. Sergey has died. She had the whole run-in with the Russian officer. So there's a lot of stuff that is preoccupying her, and you could definitely it was very understandable why she was a little bit less, she felt very stressed. She felt very erratic at work. It was very easy to tell. And so when she's talking to her advisor and just going off on her and things like that, they did a really good job of showing you what was really going on with Lily. But once she has this conversation with Jen, you knew something was in motion here. When Jen's talking to her advisor, talking to her about how Lily apparently has really bad schizophrenia. She has these recurring outbursts and things like that, and things have just not been good for her. Again, they sold that really well, because it did not seem like Lily was right in the head at this point. It did not seem like things were good with Lily in terms of her mental state. It seemed like something was off. And so once she gets to Kenton, who I have to say, the actor that's playing Kenton is doing such an excellent job with this character. I'm loving what he's doing. He's exuding this false sense of security that he's putting all these characters in, and that just makes him so much more creepier, because we already know what this guy is capable of. We know that he is the one that is mainly responsible for Sergey's death, and so he's doing a really good job at making himself look like the good guy, making himself look like the guy that is going to help out everyone, similar to what Nick Offerman did in the first two episodes. That's something that this actor, who I think is just doing such an excellent job as this character, is really doing here. But when he's talking to Lily and she's telling him about everything that's been going on, just like she did to her advisor, you can tell that he's very sketched out about it. And, there's two ways to look at this scene, I think. You can tell that he's very sketched out, but he also is generally scared of Lily, because Devs knows that she's a threat. Remember, Forrest keeps saying, like, they have to make sure that Lily is, they have to make sure that, they keep Lily at arm's length. They know that she's very dangerous in that way. So Kenton's trying to calm her, and she just goes off. She's losing it completely, telling him that, like, something is just not right here. She does not believe that he was just killed in that fire. She feels that there's more at play, and she just loses it. And so when Lily was on that balcony, I knew she obviously wasn't going to jump, because she's the main character. I knew for a fact that they were not going to do that. But again, I totally bought it. I bought it that she was very much just losing it in that way. She was just that mentally unstable. But I was also thinking, why would they give us a character this mentally unstable as like the lead character of our series? Why would they possibly do that? Because this character could get really annoying after a while if they're going to do that with her. And I was interested in seeing what they were really going to end up doing there. But then once we get the reveal that all of this was basically a ruse, that the whole reason that they did this was so Jen could hack into Kenton's computer and then find the security footage of what actually happened to Sergey, I thought was a brilliant reveal. I love the way that was done. And oh my God, Sonoya Mizuno just killed it in that entire sequence because, again, she had me massively convinced. I did not think for a second that this wasn't true, that I genuinely did feel that she was losing it, that she was just that mentally unstable. And I have to give it to her. I know a lot of people were trashing on her as an actress, but I don't know how you watch this episode and not give her credit where credit is due, because she very much sold it in that way. And I thought she did an excellent job in that sequence. And then when we get to the final moments of this episode where she's going over the footage with Jamie, and not only do we realize that this whole thing is a load of bullshit, which we already were pretty convinced by. We were already convinced that there was an ulterior motive surrounding devs and things like that. But we also get to see that not only is this pretty much all just, nothing, that they've been lying to her, but we also see that the flames that they made are actually CGI. Every single shot is the same. This is something that Jamie very quickly picks up upon, and we basically realize that this is just something that devs made to cover up the truth of what really happened, which I think is an excellent way to transition us into where next week's episode is going to go. But they also do a really good job of making you know that this might not entirely go Lily's way. Jen even warns her when they're in the car that, like, there's a possibility they could look at her records. They could look at her, files and things like that. They could realize that she is bullshitting them. But Lily stays confident about it. And so I like the way that this is really going, that she has them at the moment right where she thinks that she needs them. But we also do know that devs is we're already seeing that they're very easily able to weasel their way out of situations, especially that scene with Forrest where he's talking to Kenton and telling him straight up, like, Lily cannot die. We need to make sure that Lily is alive for what we need her to do. So we don't really know what that's all about. We don't really know what that's heading towards, but again, there's something brewing for sure, and I really like where they are headed there. And I just thought that Lily's plot was really well done in this episode. They did a really good job of just showing just how Lily will do things that is a bit deceitful, in a way to, get what she wants. She's getting closer to solving the mystery already, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this is really going to go. I think there's a lot of potential in that story for sure, and I love the way things are heating up there. The show really is moving at a very fast pace, but once again, like I said in episode 2, I don't feel like they're moving too quickly. I feel like they have 8 episodes, and so they're trying to, use that time as wisely as they can, and I think they're doing a really good job with that here. But the only other stuff to talk about is what is going on with devs as a whole. Now, there are 2 things to really discuss here. Everything going on with Senator Lane, but also the opening scene. I'm going to talk about the Senator Lane stuff first. So we get this introduction of this character who I found to be interesting, but I'm also a little bit worried about, mainly because the storyline of Senator Lane wanting to acquire this tech for the government, for their own use, is one that has been done to death. We have seen this storyline done so many times before. That being said, though, it does make a lot of sense why they want to use this. I mean, the devs team is so enriched in what they're doing that seeing JFK's assassination, as we see in the opening scene, is boring to them because they've seen it so many times. They have so much access to this private information, and that's something that she really wants to take hold of. But they also are not being truthful with her. Forrest tells her that this is all stuff they're using just to predict certain things like the weather and things like that, which is obvious that's not really what's going on. I still very much do think that this is being used as a way for him to possibly see his daughter again. I think it all does kind of tie back to that. I think that is Forrest's main objection here. But that's not the part that intrigues me the most about this plot. What intrigues me the most is when Kenton talks to this security guard that works for Lane and talks about how he's, while he is very loyal to her, he's always felt this need to maybe get rid of her at some point, maybe dispose of her when he needs to. And we know that Kenton's a guy that is really good with that. We already know just how menacing that he can be, and that he's someone where if you need someone to get killed, Kenton's on it right away. He's already killed Sergei. He's killed the Russian agent, so he could very easily dispose of Senator Lang if they need to. And so I really am intrigued to see where that's all going to go. Are they going to go after Lang? When are they going to decide to go after her? How far are they willing to let her go? I'm just really interested in seeing what that is all about. I think there's a lot of intrigue in that plot line for sure, and I really do love where that is headed overall. And then the only other thing to really talk about in this episode in terms of plot lines is the opening scene that we get with Lyndon and Stephen Henderson's character, whose name is escaping me right now. I love these two. I said in the second episode, and I'll say it again, I absolutely love these two. I think they're providing some really great levity, especially, again, Lyndon just making fun of how much older Henderson's character is. I just think is great, and Spaany's doing such a great job selling you on that character. You don't for a second, you do not for a second see Spaeny in that role. She is completely transformed, and I just love what she's doing here. You really do feel she is this just really horny teenage boy in that way, and I think she's doing such a great job playing that role, and I really love what she's doing there. But the more important part, I think, of this opening scene is when Cailee finds these two and she tells them that, they're using this to their own advantage. And I also think she has some very interesting social commentary there about us using technology. And, we have all this technology to us, but we immediately gravitated for our own pleasure. And that's exactly what Henderson and Lyndon are doing in this first scene, is that they're just watching Marilyn Monroe and Bobby Kennedy having sex. That's all they're doing. And it's just because it's enticing. And you can see that Cailee is very upset about this. And it's, again, because they have so much access to this technology. Why are they using it on something so just trivial in that way? And I think that was a really interesting thing. But Henderson's character also notes that Cailee has actually gone too far before. There's something that she's done that we don't know about. And I like this because up to this point, Cailee has basically just been like the robotic sort of servant to Forrest. Like, she is by the book. She is extremely loyal to him. She never wavers. So to hear the fact that that's actually not been the case at one point, I'm really excited to see where they're going to go with that. Alison Pill's done a really good job at proving her fidelity to Forrest's character, and showing that Cailee is someone that seems to be, tethered to him in that way. Like, she can't possibly deviate, but to know that she did at one point is something I'm definitely very excited to get into, and I'm really interested in seeing where they're going to go with that. And I really do like the way they're using those characters. They only really showed them that once, but I think there was enough for them in this episode. We're getting just a little bit about, we're getting to know a little bit about these characters, that they don't take their job as seriously as they should, that they've also been exposed to so much history that it's almost boring to them. Something like Joan of Arc being burnt alive is not interesting. They'd much rather watch Marilyn Monroe getting it on with Bobby Kennedy than something like someone being burnt to death, which obviously you or I would have a big reaction to. So it just makes you wonder, like, what else do they have access access to? Like, how do they have access to all this stuff? You know, and how many times they watch it? Why have they watched it so many times? It's really interesting to me, and I'm excited to see where that really is going to go. So that's really everything to talk about going on story-wise in this episode. Like I said, it was a pretty basic episode overall, but going to the technical stuff here, I mean, the way this episode was directed was really well done, but something that's continuing to impress me about Garland's directing is that he isn't afraid to dive a little bit more into the levity of things. There's actually a lot of good humor peppered throughout just this 44 minutes of television alone, whether it's, like I said, that first scene with Lyndon and Henderson's character, or the scene where Jamie is talking to Lily about you know, watching Sergei's death, and he's like, you really want to watch your boyfriend burn to death? I thought was a really good dark humor there, and that's a technique we really have not seen him use before. So I think he's doing a really good job of challenging himself, and it definitely is impressing me for sure, and I'm really like what Alex Garland is doing. But his writing, like I said in this episode, the way he was able to deceive us completely, make us feel that Lily really was that unstable, was insane. I love the way he was able to do that. It takes a real director to handle that well, and he just did such a masterful job, I think, at directing that here. I was very impressed with what he ended up doing with that scene. I really like the way that was handled, and even, you know, made me want to rewatch like the conversation that Lily and Jen had, because I'm sure on a rewatch that plays much differently. When you first watch it, it seems like Jen is like horrified by what Lily is saying because she feels that she needs to be like, you know, treated to a mental facility or something like that. Now it's more like, oh my God, this is such a crazy idea, it just might work. So I actually like the fact that we didn't get to see that conversation play out. It was a really great way of subverting our expectations, and I think Garland did such a great job writing that here. And again, I've said it with the first two episodes, I love the fact that he is in control of the show pretty much. I love that he gets the final say because it's playing out the way that he wants to, and that's always great to see. The cinematography in this episode, once again, just so many great shots here, but the one that stuck out the most to me is probably the scene that everyone's talking about with Kenton, where, you know, he's in his office, but you also see like his face in the monitor, kind of showing how he's pulling the strings, so to speak. He's the one that is very much in control of what's going on. He's kind of like the man behind the curtain. Like, this is the Kenton that he wants to show to everyone, but the real like monstrous and violent side of Kenton is the one that he hides, and I think they did a really good job with the cinematography here. Score, once again, was also very impressive, especially towards the ending and the editing in this episode. This was a much shorter episode than the first two, but I think it definitely worked as such. I definitely think it did not need to be any longer than it was, and that's what I do like about the fact that this is a show that was supposed to be on Hulu, is that they don't feel the temptation to like make it over long. I feel like that happens a lot on streaming platforms. I mean, I've seen some really big examples of that. Hunters, for example, to say the least. That's you know, just to name a few. And I think that the show is doing a much better job at really, you know, really just knowing when to make something long, make something short. I think that the editing was definitely very impressive here. So overall, guys, there's a lot that I really did love about this episode, whether it was the reveal with Lily and her now being fully against Devs, but also finding a little bit more of what's going on there, how they need Lily to be alive, what Forrest is really planning, and also how long they plan to keep Senator laying around. What is it going to take for Kenton to snap and just finally take her out in the way, because we can see he definitely is intrigued by that idea, but also find out maybe more of what Cailee has been doing as well. I think there's a lot of potential for where they are going to go in the coming episodes. But overall, guys, this was really the first episode of Devs that I can truly say I absolutely loved. So I'm definitely going to give Devs episode 3 overall an A-. But over, guys, to my review of this episode of Devs. Let me know what you guys saw of this episode overall, if your thoughts. And like I said, I know I'm one episode behind. I am planning on being caught up by my next video. Don't quote me on that, but most likely I will be. So I will see you guys in my next video, which I think is going to be for the next episode. I'm not entirely sure. That could very well change. But if it is, then I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.